The D-Block Courtyard is one such space that requires vast improvement and redesign in order to foster a more inclusive social environment. The Courtyard is located between a series of key buildings at QUT Gardens Point, all of which were the first original buildings. The Courtyard is well known to staff and students and could be considered a key space for nurturing a sense of community, health and well-being. This chosen site can be analysed through a series of key observations that explore the user-environment interactions. Relevant theories will be drawn, followed by design recommendations that will respond better to the user's behaviours and needs. 4 observational sessions were undertaken at various days and times throughout the week to provide a wide variety of data that analysed the user environment conditions of the space. The first 3 sessions were held during university hours, whilst the 4th session was held on a Saturday outside of the working week. By following Ziesel's framework for observing environmental behaviour, each observation was recorded through a series of annotated diagrams, drawings, photos, and quantitative data. The space currently comprises of tables and seating, a series of small gardens, the Artisans Cafe, and a network of pathways that direct users towards thoroughfares across the campus. The entrance to D Block also plays a prominent role in this space. By following the salutogenic framework, it can be noted that the Courtyard has a dull and monotonous ambience, which does not reflect the vibrancy of a social space. Instead, the space feels underwhelming and does not evoke much sense of surprise or discovery. In its responsibility as a courtyard, the space could encourage further social activity and recreation. Outside of semester dates and on weekends, the space barely receives any user engagement at all. As experienced in the Saturday observation, it resonated the characteristics of a dull ghost town. When this weekend setting is graphed on Russell and Mehrabian's PAD emotional state model, it can be represented as sad, boring, or even depressing. The Courtyard's materiality may also be a contributing factor to this unpleasant emotional response. This comprises of multiple concrete pavers, brick and stone, which create a dull but overcomplicated palette. The materials are organised in rectangular form, which create unclear pathways and a lack of wayfinding. The arrangement of these paths create harsh geometric edges that feel unnatural, thus hindering the spatial cognition of users. The Artisans Cafe, which can easily be identified as a node, holds a triangular layout that informs the Courtyard's diagonal arrangement. When relating to Lynch's theory, its banner can be considered a strong, identifiable edge that creates a separate district from the Courtyard space. This harsh edge also enhances the sense of wayfinding provided by the diagonal path directly adjacent to the cafe. Spatial cognition is also enhanced through the recognisable signage, referred to as unofficial signage by Ziesel. Constructed from timber and sufficiently shaded by umbrellas, the fixed tables are designed primarily for socio-pedal interaction within smaller groups of people. By following Lynch's theory, the table space could ideally be considered the primary node or focal point of the courtyard. This space, however, lacks formal edges that define the spatial boundary around the tables, which may also hinder the environmental perception of users. Small trees and rectangular garden beds are scattered around the seating space to provide some degree of nature. The salutogenic framework suggests the need for a restorative design that fosters a stronger sense of health and well-being. The current garden design does not reflect the values of a social courtyard space due to its poor organisation that promotes movement rather than gathering. While some efforts have been made to soften the urban landscape, it feels as though the natural elements and urban form do not harmonise well. The lack of natural materiality, such as timber, may also be a contributing factor to this emotional response. Evidently, a stronger integration and organisation of natural elements could create a stronger identity by creating more social activity. This would ultimately leave a strong legacy behind, as outlined in the salutogenic framework. In contrast to these small gardens, a series of dense trees provide a more enclosed, well-shaded space against the edges of B Block. Its lowered height provides the sensory experience of sitting underneath a protective canopy, thus heavily distinguishing itself from its surroundings. This separate garden provides a more intimate space, which may encourage users who are introverted or may want to maintain a degree of privacy or relaxation. On the PAD emotional state model, the space can be graphed as pleasing, content, or relaxed, suggesting its pleasurable dimension and strong contrast against the emotional responses of the open courtyard. The shapes and forms created by the tables greatly influenced the human experience and behaviours in the courtyard. This space received strong foot traffic within the first 3 observations, which highlighted issues pertaining to legibility. To begin with, the current table arrangement creates excessive negative space for users to move through. 13 users were recorded moving through the space in a span of 2 minutes, causing unnecessary disruption to the table occupants. According to Frederick, this undesirable foot traffic is a result of the negative space created between the tables, which promotes movement rather than dwelling in a space. This was extremely evident as commuters took multiple routes through the tables due to a lack of formal edges that created a private district. Frederick also noted that the positive spaces are preferred by users for social interaction and lingering. The second and third observations captured foot traffic of users travelling between classes at 6 p.m. and midday respectively. Using the 2-minute timer, 6 users were recorded travelling through the space at 6 p.m, whilst 8 were recorded at midday of the Monday observation. Evidently, these results suggest the need for a positive dwelling space with defined spatial boundaries that encourage more social interaction and lingering. The territorial behaviours and cues associated with the tables were also recorded. On multiple occasions, individuals were witnessed occupying an entire table to themselves, which demonstrates territorial activity. In the first observation, an individual was observed working on their laptop with their water bottle on the table and their bag on the seat beside them. These personal markers create a strong boundary around the user, whilst defining the space as a primary territory in such a public setting. When this person's friend arrived, the individual moved their water bottle and bag, which shifted the setting to a more personal space. This was also influenced by the socio-pedal arrangement of the tables. In the third observation on the Monday morning, 5 out of the 6 tables were occupied by single users who used personal markers to define their spatial territory. All 5 occupants placed their bags in the seat beside them or on the table, as well as other possessions including food, books, laptops, and clothing. This suggests the need for a variety of socio-pedal and socio-fugal seating for a balance of social and individual scenarios. A recurring discovery throughout each site observation was the interaction between the users and the stone blocks used as barriers. Multiple users in each observation perceived these blocks as seats or benches, which directly relates to Gibson's affordance theory. The term affordance refers to the arrangement of substances and surfaces that conceptually compose the form of the environment. These forms provide detectable functions, providing users with immediate perceptions of their environment. Within the first observation, person 1 was seen using the stone block as a bench to rest her handbag in order to grab her belongings out. Shortly after, person 2 used the bench to collect their rubbish before disposing in the nearby bins. Towards the end of the observation, a third person perceived the bench as a seat while sitting alone. Person 3 remained seated when their friends arrived and began socialising and interacting with them as they continued to stand. This also suggests that there are strong social cues associated with the blocks. This set of data was strengthened in the second observation, where the blocks were perceived as seats by 2 individuals who were talking to their standing friends. In the third and fourth observations, 3 additional users were noted using the blocks as seating opportunities. This consistent set of data results strongly suggests the need for more seating and spaces that encourage more social interaction. By analysing the user-environment relationships of the D-Block courtyard, it is evident that this space is in need of a redesign in order to cater for occupant behaviours. This design proposal boasts a new social hub with the vision of promoting stronger user engagement, socialisation and activity. The additional vegetation creates a stronger natural ambience and shades the space from heavy amounts of undesirable sun, particularly in the warmer months. The timber flooring creates a defined spatial boundary and edge, in which the original seating space heavily lacked. The new space is designed to facilitate a multitude of activities and people, whilst bridging the social void of the pre-existing courtyard. These design strategies, along with the simplified material palette, seek to improve users' spatial cognition and overall legibility. The diagonal thoroughfare has been retained to create further encouragement, which will ultimately create a stronger pedestrian frontage along Artisans Cafe. The communal garden replaces the old garden beds, which receives optimal daylighting all year round. The vision of creating social cohesion has been addressed through the encouragement of recreational gardening and the potential food production for artisans. The creation of this new spatial program overall may attract stronger user engagement throughout the weekends and non-contact hours. Ultimately, implementing these design strategies will create a stronger identity and legacy for both the QUT campus and its wider community.